Rugby World Cup 2023, folks, is done and dusted, but now that we get a chance to step back and look at the competition overall, how did each of the teams go? Do we think they did well? Did they kind of do middling, or did they disappoint? We'll go through each of the teams and give them a rating between those three, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. I'm kind of basing this on a little bit of what were the expectations like, a little bit what was the previous history like, how did the results go, maybe not necessarily the result itself, but the margins and whatnot. And yeah, you guys can let us know your thoughts. We'll start with Pool A. Namibia, I kind of ended up giving them a middling result. Not great, not bad. They got beaten by bigger margins than they did at the last World Cup. They didn't win any games. The only reason they probably end up getting a middling result is because they played pretty well against Uruguay. I could have leaned towards the fact that they the fact that they went winless again and conceded, 96 points against France. We could go a bit more negative, but they genuinely could have won that game. They were robbed of the chance at the last World Cup to play Canada, which would have been their best chance for a win, but not doing for Namibia. Uruguay, I've ended up giving them a good score. I reckon they passed their test. They gave France a bit of a push, even if they got pretty well beaten by the All Blacks. And they won the game against Namibia, which would have been the kind of expectations going into the tournament. And then for Italy, sadly, I've given them a big cross. Just the results that they had in the two clutch games against France and New Zealand, they blew both those chances by a mile. 96-17 against New Zealand is atrocious. And 60 points to 7 against France? Like, nah, man. I know they were underdogs and they were supposed to get beaten. And if they got beaten by 5 or 10 or even 15 points, it wouldn't have been that dramatic. But no, they absolutely did not show up in those games. Pool B, Romania, sadly, I feel harsh because you had such a tough pool. But Romania so didn't fire any shots in that World Cup. They just looked the worst team. And it's hard again because they played in Pool B. But man, they finished with the worst points margin. Minus 255 points was their points difference at the end of the World Cup. Toughest pool. But man, it was pretty tough watching. Tonga, I've maybe been a little bit harsh again given the nature of the pool. But I don't think Tonga maybe met the expectations because they were able to bolster the squad with a bunch of former All Blacks and whatnot, Wallabies and Adam Coleman. But they didn't look like beating any of the big three in the pool. They just didn't. I mean, they got beaten, 49-18, 56-16, and 45-17 in all the games against the teams that finished above them. They played well against South Africa, who ended up being champions. Is maybe a bit of a bright spot, so maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but yeah, I feel like, again, kind of like Italy, they needed to get a bit closer given the squad that they had. And Scotland, likewise, man, I feel tough to do this to you, but again, similar to Tonga, in the two games that they needed to fire shots against South Africa or against Ireland, they didn't get it done. I mean, kept to 3 points against South Africa with a side like Scotland's got. Doesn't look as bad when you see the fact that South Africa won the whole bloody thing, but Scotland's a better side than that, or are they not? Maybe I'm just reading too much into the results I've seen from them over the last kind of couple of years, and against the Big Four, they didn't light it up. And then was it 36-14 against Ireland? That result, losing result run against Ireland goes on. So I feel like I've been a bit tough on Pool B, but yeah, it was a very, very tough pool. Georgia, the red pen comes out once again. Georgia were not expected to finish bottom of their pool. The World Cup is the chance for Georgia to put their hand up and show the rest of the world that they need to be in a competition like the Six Nations. And yet they draw with Portugal. Yeah, that's not great. They didn't beat any of the teams in the pool. Yeah, they finished last. That was not expected. They're usually gold over Portugal in that European Championship they play. It's usually a team they get the better of. In the game where it mattered, they were only held to a draw. Portugal, on the other hand, get a big old tick because Portugal was certainly, of the teams that didn't make it out of the pool, perhaps the best news story of the entire competition. They played some bloody entertaining rugby, and they managed to get a win over a team that made the quarterfinals. So, big win over Fiji in the final pool game was amazing. We can only hope that we can see more of Portugal, But hopefully they can start to give Georgia a bit of a run for their money in Europe, because Georgia tends to dominate that competition. And the Wallabies, you don't need me to tell you that they're getting a negative rating. They didn't make it out of the pool. They played the youngsters, and it didn't pay off. Eddie's left the Wallabies now, so that just seems like an absolute poison chalice for whoever takes over. It seems like an absolute mess in Australia. Not getting out of the pool, not giving a fitting send-off to guys, like Michael Hooper, seems atrocious. So, yeah, bad news all around for the Wallabies. For Pool D, Chile, I've maybe been a little bit generous, but first World Cup, they didn't get any points out of it. They were beaten 43-10 by Samoa, 42-12 by Japan, 5? Was it 59-5? I can't read my handwriting. Against Argentina, and then 71-0 by England. So only the 71-0 against England is the proper embarrassing one. For the lowest ranked team at the competition to not be getting like Italy's 96-17 put on them, I think speaks well. And if they can get some maul defense going, they're not going to get beaten by those margins. So Chile, I think, like Uruguay, are teams which World Rugby needs to show a bit more love to. With all these plans with the World League and whatnot, Chile and Uruguay kind of seems to be a bit out in the cold, which is disappointing given what we've seen from them. Samoa, I've maybe been a bit harsh, but they would have liked to finish at least one spot above that. They finished below Japan. Japan's the team that they beat prior to the World Cup in the Pacific Nations Cup. So, I mean, they gave England a hell of a scare. And England are a team that came within a point of the final itself. So, that's a bit of a positive. But I think overall, with the squad that Samoa had, they would have liked to have finished at least one spot above. And then Japan, I've kind of given a bit of a middling one, because they didn't make it out of the pool. They lost the clutch game they needed to against Argentina, 39-27, and then they lost to England 34-12 for a team that made the quarterfinals last time, albeit at home. We maybe would have liked to see them just get that touch closer, but not within a score of either of the games that mattered. The fact that they beat Samoa is at least a bit of a positive. So there you go. I've been a bit of a grumpy old man and given some teams a whole lot of red. Getting into the quarterfinal teams, red continues. France. It's hard because they lost by a point, 29-28 against South Africa. But this French side was a side that not that long ago had won a Grand Slam, had been ever so briefly the number one side in the world. We were at a home World Cup with, like, Dupont, probably the best player in the world. I know he got injured, but came back for that knockout game, and they didn't get it done. This was the chance. They were genuinely the favourites going into the World Cup with the bookies, and to go out in the quarters, it's just below expectations. So, yeah, it's really disappointing for France to go out when they did. The draw is a factor in that, but, man, I think they needed to make at least the final, right? It would have been brutal for France to lose another final, but still, going out the quarterfinals. Ireland, as I said here, I still don't know which pen to give you. I'm going to go with the red pen. Is it harsh? Yes. But number one side in the world on a 17-match winning run, having beaten the All Blacks down here in New Zealand, go out to the All Blacks in the quarterfinals. If it's a semi-final, I feel like, as that game felt like it should have been, I'm probably bringing out the black pen for at least a middling run. But another quarterfinal exit when you genuinely had the best squad in the world going into the World Cup, it's just disappointing, man. I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys are as gutted as anybody. But, yeah, I think we expected them to make it finally into the semis. Not to be. Wales, I'm going to give Wales the green pen, because some people were saying they weren't even going to make it out of their pool. They topped the pool, and were genuinely looking like they'd put all the turmoil behind them with all the veterans leaving just prior to the World Cup campaign, all the behind-the-scenes dramas in Welsh rugby. Everything was looking pretty hunky-dory. The exit to Argentina in the quarters was pretty disappointing, but ultimately, there's no one who looks back at that Welsh campaign and thinks it was disgraceful. Like, if you'd gone out in the pool, then you'd be looking at, geez, what have we done? But no, I think it was all right. Fiji, I feel like I'm being a bit harsh again, because if you say Fiji in the quarterfinals, first time in a long time, you would say, great, that's a hell of a result. But they just scraped through. They lose to Portugal on the way. And I love the fact that Fiji are playing some kind of more traditional rugby. Their set piece is good. They can score maul tries and they're getting turnovers like crazy. Botia is absolutely lethal at the breakdown, but very few sides have the attacking power that Fiji has, and we didn't really see it that much. It was a bit disappointing. Like, it seems like they've sacrificed a little bit of what makes the Fijian side one of the best sides to watch to go a bit more conservative. And maybe conservative rugby is winning rugby, but I feel like the balance needs to shift a little bit more to the middle. I don't know, for what it's worth. Fiji was so close to getting through to semi-final. They lost 30 points to 24 to England. But, I do feel like if this Fijian side genuinely could have fired more shots. Hopefully that's seen in a respectful way. That I think Fiji could have gone further. You know what I mean? I'm not just saying, wow, you guys were lucky to make the quarterfinals, big green tick. I feel like they could have gone better. England, I think, speaking of big green ticks, another side that was panned going into the tournament. Not playing good rugby. Not going to get out of the pool. Man, they topped the pool and they were legit looking at one point the only side that can go through to the final and be the unbeaten side to win a final, because everybody else, Argentina, New Zealand, South Africa, had lost in the pool. So man, and then the mental fortitude in that opening game against Argentina, go down a man and still win the game comfortably. Amazingly good results. So not everybody likes the rugby that Steve Borthwick plays, but he seems to be doing things right, and if he's getting results, we will see how he can take the team further, because he's only had a very limited time with them going forward. Argentina. Again, maybe I'm being a bit tough, but I'm going to give them a middling result. Like, you look at Argentina and go, semi-final, bro, that's great. Give them the green pen. Prior to the tournament, a lot of the talk was they could be a potential dark horse for the World Cup. But, I mean, the semi-final exit 44-6. I think showed that they are not quite there. So, Michael Checker had a wee rant and rave at the referee after the third place match. But kind of like Fiji, I look at that Argentinian side and go, you guys have got more attacking weapons than what you showed us. So, a bit disappointed with the way they went out. The expectations were moderately high. They were brought back down to earth after the opening game, so I'll give credit to them for turning it around after the disappointing loss to England in the pool stages. But the manner of the semi-final exit, I think, is disappointing, and I do feel like the Argentinian side is better than what they showed in that game. New Zealand, I'm going to be generous to my own side and give them the big green tick. I mean, Fozzie, if he goes out in the quarterfinals, is undoubtedly labelled the worst All Blacks coach of all time, I think. I mean, he's not got the greatest winning percentage, and it would have been only the second time we'd gone out at that stage, but he manages to get one over the Irish, and he gets within a point of the South Africans in the final. So I think he leaves with at least a bit more respect than what he would have, man, if he'd gone out in the quarterfinal. He would have been absolutely hung out to dry. So yes, given the expectations for the All Blacks, I can tell from here in New Zealand, were not that high. The fact that they got as close as they did is encouraging. And then South Africa, obviously, you win the bloody thing. You guys get all the ticks. I mean, back-to-back is an incredible achievement. The fact that it's only been done once before this lot was incredible. I mean, they weren't even supposed to win it in 2019 when Rassie took over. They were targeting this tournament as the one to get things right. The fact that they got 2019 was kind of just a bonus along the way, which is pretty incredible when you think of it. But there you go, folks. I have maybe been a bit harsh on teams like France and Ireland, who were so close to getting through to the next stages. I will say that, as I said with Fiji, because your teams are that good, for them to go out when they did is just always going to be disappointing. I think if New Zealand and South Africa had lost those two games, they'd probably be getting red marks as well, because a team of that stature and that squad depth and whatnot needs to be going through. I can see a lot of red in the pool stages. Again, maybe I've been a bit harsh. You guys let me know if I'm just being a grumpy old man. But yeah, let us know your thoughts, guys. Check out the China video where I got into that university, followed the lady into some oncoming traffic on a wee Chinese bicycle. It's pretty random, but hopefully it's a bit of entertainment now that the rugby is done. But yeah, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.